Howdy folks, AJ coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer, and this video is going to be a gaming related video. I'm just going to say that up front. I try to try not to get political on my channel. I try to just keep it about gaming and geek culture type stuff, movies and books. Sometimes I talk about whatever, but every once in a while I feel compelled to talk a little bit about something else that's going on in the world, and I generally reserve those instances when I can add something to the conversation that I have some personal experience or connection with. I don't try to just be somebody who's just giving an opinion based on not having any kind of direct reference to the subject at the topic that we're talking about. So I've talked in other videos. I've talked about security issues where I was a security manager for many years, and of course had did security work in the Army and everything. So I felt that I could give an educated opinion about some of those topics. This time, it's going to be the broader scope of this topic is going to be about the government shutdown. But the reason that I felt compelled to make a video about how it affects me personally is that there's been a recent development where there were 4 U.S. Military personnel that were killed over the weekend in Afghanistan by an IED. And it has come to light that because of the government shutdown, these brave people that gave their lives in service to their country, their death benefit that goes to the family, the $100,000 that they, and it's usually it has to be wired within 36 hours normally of the death of the service person. That is not taking place because of the government shutdown. Those families are not getting any money. So imagine that it was your husband or your son or your daughter or your sister or your brother, and you get the news that they've been killed in combat. And then it's told to you, not only that, but the government cannot provide the funds that they normally would to help you with the funeral costs and whatever else is needed to take care of. I mean, there's lots of scenarios out there. You could have a spouse whose husband was just killed, or whose wife was just killed, and they're back home. The spouse is at home here in the United States, and so now they've lost the love of their life, their spouse. Now they're not getting any money from the government, and they're also not getting the paycheck of the person who was killed anymore, that income. So now you're talking about not being able to pay bills. A lot of times, service people, they know, they rely on, when they put their life on the line and they say, to their spouse or whoever their surviving member would be, they say, if something happens to me, you're going to get this $100,000 from the government to help you with my final expenses, but also if you need to help, that can pay off a mortgage or pay off part of a mortgage or whatever, pay off bills that there might have been piling up or whatever the family needs it for. Well, it ain't there now because of the government shutdown. So, and then the second thing that caused me to want to make this video was that there's a number of guys that I served with back in my Army days, during the what we call the Cold War era veterans, who are also affected by this because, number one, they're retirees and they get a retirement check from the government. I'm not a retiree. I only stayed in for 5 years, but some of these guys stayed for 20, and they get their, or they stayed in for 20. They ended up going to Desert Storm, the first Gulf War, and getting injured, having a combat injury, and so they get disability for the combat injury, or they get their retirement or whatever. I suppose at some point that might be affected. But the other thing is that some of them that I served with, they actually work for the government now in a capacity as a, working for the Department of Defense or whatever, and they're on furlough, so they are not getting paid or whatever. So some of them have had to reach out to other veterans like us, fellow veterans, and ask for some help. And so what it boils down to is that we have a Congress who is displeased with a law that passed about Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act. It's called, but it goes by Obamacare, of course. But it's a law. It's in place. It passed both houses of Congress. It was signed by the president, and it's in law. It's a law. And they're not happy about that. So they decided to basically hold the government hostage to get their way, is what it boils down to. Now, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian, I'm a Libertarian, regardless of any of that, it's irresponsible for any member of Congress or for the president or anybody else to stop the government from working. The FDA is not working, and supposedly there's a salmonella outbreak, and there aren't enough FDA inspectors to check into the thing properly or whatever. I mean, there's all these things that take place when the government is up and running that we all take for granted. And it's irresponsible for these politicians to use it as leverage against all of us, because that's what they're doing, to kind of get their way. There is a process. If they want to repeal Obamacare, they have to put it on a bill, and they have to go through the legislative process and have it voted upon, and so forth and so on. There's a process that has to go through, and they're circumventing the process by saying, "Oh, we're just going to hold the fucking country hostage till we get our way. We're taking our ball and we're going home." And that's how they feel about it. So, or that's how they're choosing to react about it. And I will give you a comparison. In my current job, I'm a certified pool operator. And what that means is, anywhere that you have a public swimming pool, the local health department requires that any municipal swimming pool, public swimming pool, has to have a certified pool operator that's assigned to that swimming pool to oversee, to make sure that the chemicals are kept balanced, it's clean, and it's up to standard. Just like, same thing with your food inspectors that go and inspect restaurants. Same type of thing. So I am a certified pool operator, and I work at a municipal pool here in Utah. And I oversee, I'm the maintenance manager, and I oversee, one pool has 163,000 gallons in it, and the other one has 144,000 gallons in it, plus I have a hot tub and so forth. And I'm responsible for all of that public swimming water. And you have to go through a certification. I had to get certified. I've been certified twice now. You have to do it every 5 years. And so it's my responsibility to make sure that swimming water is fit and safe for the public to go swimming in, and no one's going to get sick because the water is not clean, and there isn't bacteria and other bugs and stuff in the water that can get somebody sick. So, to compare that to what's going on with this government shutdown, you've got Congress who's saying they want their way, so they're not going to operate the government until they get their way. It would be the same thing for me to say, I'm not getting paid enough, and I want to get a raise. And you know what I'm going to do? Until I get that raise, I am not going to balance the water in the swimming pools. I'm not gonna chlorinate it properly. I'm not going to make sure that the pH is at a proper level. I'm not going to make sure that the saturation index is within the correct parameters. I'm not going to do all these things. I'm not going to backwash it. I'm not going to vacuum it. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm just not going to do my job until I get what I want. Now, as you all know, what would happen is I would get fired. They would say, not only are you not getting your raise, your ass is out on the street. Goodbye. See ya. You don't want to do your job? Get the hell out. Bye. That's what they would say. And they're absolutely right for doing that. The problem is, we can't do that with Congress. We can't just say, oh, you're all fired. We have to wait for an election. And they know that. And regardless of whether they think, some of them think they may get reelected, they might not get reelected. At this point, they're not worried about it. That's in the future, and they're thinking about right now. They want to get their way, and so forth. So there's really no consequence to them, taking their ball and going home, and that's what they're doing. So, anyway, I'm just rambling on about this, and I don't know if any of you are frustrated with it. These are just these two things about the death benefit for the soldiers who, and there was one Marine, I believe, who gave their lives, is one thing that bothers me deeply. And then the fact that a lot of these other, furloughed workers are, going to be hurting because of not getting paid and so forth. So those are things that personally affect me in one way or another. And I'm sure that there's other things. I know that there's clinical trials that are not being done because there's no money for it because the government shut down, so there's no money being appropriated for it. There's the FDA thing. I mean, it just goes on. And I'm sure a lot of you may or may not be affected in some way also. So I hope not, but unfortunately that's the reality. And I just wanted to get on record with my opinions, and I think I've done that. So until next time, and next time I will do another gaming related. We'll be back to business as usual doing gaming related stuff. But I just felt that I needed to do this. So thank you for indulging me, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.